This is the story of the rise of Prekeh Boy Wilmot, a name that became feared across sections of St. James, a young man whose actions turned ordinary communities into places of silence and fear. For years, Wilmot lived on the run. His name appeared again and again in police intelligence reports. Each time his name surfaced, it was tied to violence, murders, shootings, armed confrontations. Slowly, he built a reputation as someone dangerous, bold, and difficult to catch. Delano Wilmot was from Motherland, a section of Cambridge in St. James. It was from this community that his journey into crime began. People who knew him early say he was not always feared, but over time, his behavior changed. Violence became his language, and fear became his shield. Wilmot first rose through a gang known as the Ratty Gang. At one point, this group operated mainly out of Cambridge and was responsible for terrorizing several communities in St. James. They were known for robberies, shootings, and deadly feuds. But cracks soon formed inside the gang. Before the death of Ratty Gang leader Ryan Peterkin, Wilmot reportedly split from the group. Tensions had been growing, and trust had broken down. Peterkin himself would later die in a violent confrontation with a joint police and military team on April 14, 2018, in the Berkshire district of Westmoreland. His death marked the end of Ratty Gang's dominance. For Wilmot, it marked a new beginning. After the split, he formed his own group, later known as the Retrieve or Prekeh Gang. This move shifted the balance of power in parts of St. James. According to police, Wilmot quickly began to assert control through fear and force. His new group became linked to serious crimes, including multiple murders. The split between Wilmot and the Ratty Gang did not end quietly. It turned into a violent feud. Police reports indicated that at least 4 relatives of Ratty Gang members were killed as a result. The violence was no longer limited to gang members. Families were being targeted. Fear spread quickly. As the feud grew, Wilmot's name became heavier on the streets. One of the most alarming incidents linked to him happened on November 13, 2018. On that day, 2 members of the Jamaica Defense Force were shot and injured in St. James. The attack shocked the country. It showed a dangerous shift. Wilmot was no longer just fighting rivals. He was openly confronting the security forces. Despite the seriousness of the incident, Wilmot remained free. Police also wanted him in connection with the 2016 murder of Mark Williams in Cambridge. At the time, this killing did not receive much attention. But as Wilmot's profile grew, investigators began to see a pattern. Violence followed him wherever he went. By this point, Wilmot had developed a reputation as someone who always escaped. Several operations were launched to capture him. Roadblocks were set up, searches were carried out. Yet each time, he managed to disappear. According to police, Wilmot was linked to at least 12 murders since 2016. In addition to those killings, he was also connected to 11 non-fatal shootings. Many of the victims were members of the security forces. Each incident added to the belief that Wilmot felt untouchable. But while he avoided arrest, many around him did not. Several of his alleged associates were killed during encounters with law enforcement. Slowly, his circle began to shrink. Still, Wilmot remained active. Of the murders linked to him, at least 4 occurred in his own Cambridge community, including Motherland. Violence had returned to the very place he came from. Residents began living in fear, especially at night. People who lived in Cambridge later described how Wilmot and his men would move openly through communities, armed with handguns and high-powered rifles. They showed no fear. Some residents said Wilmot was often seen with a rifle slung over his shoulder, walking freely as if he owned the area. According to community members, Wilmot built a wide network of support. Some people were forced to help him. Others were threatened. Food, water, and supplies were brought to him regularly. Fear kept many silent, As time passed, Wilmot became more than just a criminal. He became a symbol, a reminder of what could happen if you spoke, if you resisted, or if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But while Wilmot appeared powerful, pressure was building quietly. Police intelligence was improving. Surveillance increased. Information began to flow in. Movements were being tracked. Hideouts were being identified. The same confidence that protected Wilmot was now making him predictable. Unbeknownst to him, the space around him was closing in, and soon, the years of violence, fear, and escape would lead to one final confrontation. By the time 2019 arrived, Prekeh Boy Wilmot was no longer just a wanted man. He was a constant topic inside police briefings, intelligence meetings, and security force operations across Western Jamaica. His name carried weight, not only because of the crimes linked to him, but because of how long he had managed to survive. For years, Wilmot had slipped through the hands of law enforcement. Each failed operation added to his reputation. People began to believe he was always one step ahead. That belief spread through communities and made residents even more afraid. If the police could not catch him, then who could stand up to him? According to investigators, Wilmot had developed a system. He rarely stayed in one place for long. He moved through bush paths, abandoned structures, and remote areas. He relied on a network of people who either feared him or depended on him. Some were threatened, others were recruited. Information, food, water, and supplies flowed toward him. In Cambridge and nearby districts, residents spoke quietly about how his influence worked. Some said young men were pressured into acting as lookouts. Others said women were sent to deliver food or messages. Refusing was not an option. Saying no could cost you your life. At nights, Wilmot and his associates were said to move openly through communities. Armed, confident, high-powered rifles visible. This behavior sent a clear message. He was not hiding. He was daring anyone to challenge him. Despite this, the security forces did not stop trying. Police reports show that Wilmot survived several close encounters. One of the most notable was the 2018 incident where 2 Jamaica Defense Force soldiers were shot and injured. That moment raised alarms at the highest levels. This was no longer a gang leader avoiding arrest. This was someone actively engaging state forces. From that point on, Wilmot became a priority target. Operations were planned quietly. Intelligence was gathered patiently. The goal was no longer just arrest. It was to stop the violence permanently. According to sources, security forces began focusing on his support network. Slowly, information started to come in. At the same time, Wilmot's world was getting smaller. Several of his alleged associates were killed during confrontations with police and soldiers. Each loss weakened his protection. Each death increased pressure. Still, Wilmot continued to move, refusing to surrender. In the communities he once controlled, the fear remained strong. Residents avoided speaking his name. Mothers kept children indoors at night. People avoided walking alone. The presence of one man had changed the behavior of entire neighborhoods. But behind the scenes, the security forces were closing in. In July 2019, intelligence pointed to a location in the Cambridge area of St. James. The area was known as Goodwill, densely wooded, quiet, and difficult to access. According to reports, Wilmot had taken refuge there, setting up a makeshift camp deep in the bush. This time, the operation would be different. Members of the Jamaica Defense Force and the police planned a joint mission. Soldiers reportedly traveled for nearly 2 hours under the cover of darkness. The timing was deliberate. The location was chosen carefully. Every movement was calculated. The aim was to corner Wilmot before he could escape again. As dawn approached on Wednesday, July 22, 2019, the operation moved into its final stage. Security forces surrounded the area quietly. They knew Wilmot was heavily armed. They also knew his history. This would not be easy. According to official reports, when Wilmot realized he was surrounded, he emerged holding an M16 assault rifle, the same type of weapon he had been seen displaying in videos and photographs, the same type of weapon linked to his violent reputation. What followed happened quickly. Shots were fired. When the exchange ended, Prekeh Boy Wilmot was dead. He was 25 years old. After the operation, police reported seizing the M16 assault rifle along with a magazine containing several rounds of ammunition. Investigators believed it was the same weapon Wilmot had been carrying and showing off in public. Superintendent Vernon Ellis, commander of the St. James Police Division, later described the operation as intelligence-driven and well-coordinated. He praised the soldiers and police officers involved, stating that criminals could not outmatch the training and tactics of the security forces. He also expressed hope that residents in the affected communities could finally live without fear. News of Wilmot's death spread quickly. In Motherland, where he once lived and still had family, the atmosphere was heavy. Security forces carried out snap raids in a search of other gang members. The area fell quiet. For many, it was a moment of reflection. In nearby communities like Amity, the reaction was different. Residents openly expressed relief. Some said they could finally sleep at night. Others said they felt free to walk the streets again without fear. Women spoke about years of intimidation. Men spoke about staying indoors after dark. Many described Wilmot as a dangerous man whose presence controlled their lives. One elderly woman summed it up simply. She said she felt no joy in death, but Wilmot had caused too much pain. Because of him, she said, soldiers and police were attacked. Young people were drawn into violence, and entire communities were labeled as dangerous. With his death, a long chapter of fear came to an end, but the damage remained. The story of Prekeh Boy Wilmot is not just a story of one man. It is a story of how violence grows when fear is allowed to rule, how power, once gained through intimidation, eventually turns inward, and how a life built on terror often ends the same way. For years, Wilmot lived by the gun. In the end, the gun decided his fate. His reign ended in the same violence that defined it, bringing silence where fear once ruled.